Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Okay, so just to recap from the last video, part 1. This is the sign that was found in Stephen's desk. When the desk was first found, you could not see any markings near any of the edges of this piece of paper. But after this Auto Trader magazine that you see there moved, which had a felt marker sitting right on top of it, okay? Once that moved, suddenly this appeared as if they pulled it out and it was on the end and that it had these markings on it, but it can't because part of the end was sticking out and there was no markings on the paper if you watch the first video. This is a document about Mr. Metz, who I talked about in the first video. On 11/15/05, investigations received a note from Captain Rush indicating that he had received an overnight voicemail from Paul Metz. The note indicates that on that night of 11/1/05, he heard a big whoosh and thought it was a power company problem. On 11/18/05, I, Dettering, did leave a voicemail for Mr. Metz's machine and advised him to contact me on my cell phone. On 11/18 at 15:43 hours, I did receive a phone call from the following subject regarding this matter. Paul J. Metz. Metz indicated he has property of approximately 4 1/2 miles due north of Avery's auto salvage yard. He indicated that on 11/1/05 at approximately 17:30 hours, he had been feeding cattle on his property. He stated he heard a loud whoosh and indicated it reminded him of incidents where he had poured gasoline or other highly volatile substances onto a fire. Metz stated that approximately 10 minutes later he smelled something that was similar to wires burning. However, he indicated the smell was not that, but he was unable to describe it, but stated it was very vile smell. He stated the cows had gotten very spooked and he could not get the cows back under control and they had damaged fences. Metz stated he had been in contact with WPS that evening, which is the power company, and there were no problems with the power outages. He stated the wind was blowing out of the south or southwest, which I disagree with and which the weather in the area disagrees with at the time. He indicated his property is located at the intersection of Yambo Creek and Zander Road. He advised me he's usually at the property should I choose to speak with him further. Investigation continues. Okay, so now we move into the actual interview of Mr. Metz, where they actually go and meet with him. So on Sunday 11/20/05 at 14:51 hours, I, Dettering, did meet with Paul Metz, previously mentioned in this report, and at his property just west of the intersection of Yambo Creek Road and Zander Road. I had spoken with Metz by telephone about the whoosh from the area of the Avery property. He states that as the crow flies, his property is approximately 4 1/2 miles from the Averys, and he heard a whoosh. I asked him how he is certain that he heard the whoosh on 11/1/05. He stated he was positive it was 11/1/05 as it was the day after Halloween. Metz indicated between 1700 and 1800 hours, all of his cattle were lined up along a fence line at the southern edge of his property near the road. He stated the air was really heavy that day and that there was a breeze out of the south. He stated he heard a whoosh off in the distance and after a few minutes smelled an odor similar to burning wires. He stated he is self-employed as a commercial electrician and is familiar with burning wires. He stated while the odor was similar to burning wires, it was something different than burning wires. He stated he began to detect the odor of very faintly approximately 5 minutes after the whoosh. He stated his cattle were bothered by the smell to the point of knocking down fences in order to try and get away. He stated he did not see any actual smoke due to the fact that it was dark or almost dark. Metz stated he got in his four-wheeler in an attempt to get his cattle back under control. He stated he got close to Zander Road, traveling east from his property, and the smell got stronger. Metz stated he subsequently had a relative contact with Kewanee Nuclear Plant, but learned they were not online at all that day. He stated WPS was also called within 1 hour of the odor being detected. However, they reported no outage in the area. He stated WPS was actually contacted by his uncle. Anyways, at 2:55 p.m., Paul Metz did provide me with the following written statement. Okay, so skipping a little bit here to the top of this page, I smelled something like wires burning. At this point, all of the cattle ran to the northeast of the property, going through the fences and knocking down the fences at the northeast edge of the property. I just want to point that out. I think it's important, especially when I get to talking about wind direction that day and stuff here. What the Weather Service says that contradicts with what he says, along with the statement about the cattle anyways. So, and along with wind speed too. So this statement is signed by Paul J. Metz. He cleared, Dettering cleared the Metz property to 1511 hours. He then, instead of heading east on Zander Road, which is where he said the smell was getting stronger. Metz said the smell was getting stronger when he was on his golf cart or whatever. He doesn't. He goes 0.2 miles east on Zander and then makes a right onto Yambo Creek Road and goes south to straight to the Avery property. The Avery property was 4.5 miles away from that property, and it's even further away from 3302 Zander Road. So strange. Okay, folks, I have to officially offer an apology. My part 2, Zander Road part 2, that some of you may have already seen, I'm going to be making it unavailable. This is the correction video. You see right now the pin that is there is at Mr. Metz's location. I'm going to go, you're going to see me now, it's in between that range of addresses. I'm going to drop another pin right now, and you can see right down here, 3302 West Zander Road. Okay? So that was the difference between these two videos. I made the mistake. I typed in 3302 Zander Road, and it popped. It immediately went to the Zander Road, 3302 Zander Road East. So I've now found the correct location, which was 3302 Zander Road West, and you can see right there how very, very close it is to Mr. Metz's property. It's within a mile. This is highly interesting. And I just wanted to point this out here. I'm also going to show you some Google Earth images of the property really close up too. But first I want to talk a little bit more about wind direction, and obviously the proximity of these properties and their locations in respect of each other, in terms of the wind blowing and all that. So we're going to show you that right now. Okay, so now we're going to show you right here, that gray dot, that pin is Mr. Metz's house. That little mouse arrow, that is 3302 Zander Road. Now, compare those, how those are maybe a half an inch apart compared to how far it was to Avery's, which is down at the bottom there. So, it's pretty crazy, but if you got to imagine, Mr. Metz is saying the wind was going in the direction that my mouse is going right now. It's coming up from the bottom there, going from the south into a northeastern direction. So that's what Mr. Metz says was happening, but that doesn't really make sense to me, because that would have been blowing it right through the corner of the property where the cows were running. And somebody has told me that cows have a very, very good sense of smell, and that they are very sensitive to that sort of thing, and would have been able to find the spot that was the least pungent. But anyway, I truly believe that the wind was blowing in the way that my mouse is flowing now. That's what the Weather Service says. I'm going to show you that in a second. The Weather Service says the wind was blowing that way, and that makes a lot of sense, because that 3302 Zander Road is just west of Mr. Metz, and the wind blowing the way that the Weather Service suggests that it was blowing would have blown it right at Mr. Metz. So that's what I think happened there. So here we see an image of Paul Metz's property at 2530 West Zander Road. Okay, you see what this is saying here. It's talking about what the weather report is for that day and what was really happening there, according to the Weather Service. That there was a wind speed of 8 miles an hour. Okay, 8 miles an hour. Okay, that means it would have taken at least 50 minutes or so for the smell to travel from Avery Salvage to this property, about 4.5 miles. I mean, it would have taken a lot longer than 5 or 10 minutes. And and seriously, dude, there's no way he's hearing the whoosh from 4.5 miles away. I mean, it's kind of absurd that he made this claim, and I think maybe that's why Kratz didn't even want to touch this evidence. But that's speculation. But I mean, it is kind of ridiculous claim that he's making. So, I mean, I just seriously doubt you could hear a whoosh like that from 4.5 miles away. So, anyways, so we also see that the wind was blowing from a west in a northern direction to the southeast. So, how the smoke or smell could have possibly traveled from Avery Salvage is just ridiculous. Okay, because this property was unoccupied, that 3302 Zander Road, it had no residents. It was actually up to be sold, and there was nobody living there. So that makes it prime because their comings and goings aren't going to be as, seen as by nearly as many people. And so that makes it kind of a unique spot. So I think that's where they were kind of planning their initial planting party. But I truly believe that Stephen choosing to leave for Crivets for a weekend or whatever, a couple days or whatever, made them feel bolder, and they decided to move it right to his front doorstep. Hence the whole "we've had a change of plans" thing. So think what you like, but it is strange. Okay, so this is just a public record that basically simply states that the property was sold on 3/31 of 2006, which means it was vacant prior to that. So, and I imagine it was probably vacant for a while, but we'll, move past that. But it was clearly vacant for some time. Anyways, that really just means that, and the fact that it was a month after Brendan's confession, when basically they felt like they had everything locked up and everything was locked up tight, they didn't need anything else. So whatever potentially may have been happening over at 3302 Zander was essentially no longer needed. And so the property could be sold. That's just the kind of the way that looks to me. But whatever you think about it, that clearly tells you the property was sold on 3/31 of 2006, 1 month after Brendan confessed. So now I'm going to show you the Google Earth image of 3302 Zander. So this is 3302 Zander from above, all by itself, and you can see that it's pretty big, piece of property there. But also, it's lined by pretty thick wooded area on the east there, okay? And actually some substantial, wooded area on the west there even. But you can see it's pretty much far away from, for the most part, far away from any other residences. And now we're going to move slightly east here and see Mr. Metz. Mr. Metz claims that the wind was coming from this direction. Okay, I just want to say that. Look at the way it's going across his property. This is the northeastern edge of his property right here. Okay, and he's claiming that the wind was coming like this. Okay, in a south and an east, in the north and an east direction, or from the southwest. So, if that's true, why are the cows going here? The smell would have been better here if it was blowing from the south, if it was blowing in the way that he's suggesting. So it makes no sense that they would have gone here instead of here, because the smell would have been dissipating here quicker than it would have here. So just wanted to point that out. So that's why I have so much trouble with his statement about it being from the southwest. And also the Weather Service says it was blowing in this direction. Okay? Now that makes sense, because it would be blowing in a direction to blow it down and away from this edge of the property. The wind would be coming like this, right? So this would be the furthest point from the west, and it would be the closest point to the north, which was, if you go the north, it was clear. Or clearer, I should say, because if the wind was blowing this way, it was going to be blowing the smell or whatever and everything in a direction like this. So it would dissipate on this edge quicker. So just wanted to point that out. That's why his statement doesn't really make much sense. And it makes more sense that he heard a whoosh or something from over in this direction, maybe about within a mile or 1.5 miles. So this is where 3302 Zander Road is. And we see just exactly how close it is to Mr. Metz. Very close. It's a half a mile. Would explain how that smell traveled within 5 and 10 minutes to where he smelled it within 5 and 10 minutes. So, because there was a wind speed of only 8 miles an hour. Now, let's also point out how far away Avery Salvage is. It's all the way down there at the bottom of the map, right there. So there's just no way this smell could have traveled the way he's suggesting. But I do believe that he heard a whoosh. I believe that he smelled a foul smell, and I believe his cows freaked out. But I just don't believe they would have freaked out in the way he's saying if the wind was blowing the way he was saying through the northeast corner of his property. Why would they have ran there? What were they thinking? Human burgers. I mean, anyways, so it just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to me that the Weather Service is accurate, and that is the estimate that I'm going to go with. Okay, so here we have the Google Earth image. That right now where the mouse is 3302 Zander Road. And where the mouse is now is Mr. Metz's property. As you can see, he's exactly due east of 3302 Zander. That is Yambo Creek Road. I'm sorry, that is Zander Road right there, which they're both on. And then this little road here is called like Rainbow Road or something like that. Rainbow something circle or something like that. So anyways, you can see here, but keep in mind the wind was supposed to be blowing from the top left corner of like this image towards like the bottom right corner of the image. So that would be the wind flow on this. So that's why I say the area at the top right of Mr. Metz's property would have most likely been the clearest. But, you know, the Weather Service says that's the way it was going. I have no idea what possessed Mr. Metz to try to blame the Averys. We all know that in that area they seem to have a bit of an inborn kind of dislike for him. So maybe that's what motivated him. But I think he heard the whoosh, and I think his cows were reacting to something. So that wraps it up for this one, folks. I think that this pretty much points a pretty clear path to where the burn site was and where it actually happened. You know, we don't have any explanation into why or what's going on there at all. They waited until November 20th. Well, essentially November 20th to go investigate this. You know, why were they not, you know, more curious about it sooner? You know, the obvious, because if they saw that sign in Steven's desk, why was it not like immediate when they get a call from Mr. Metz, who claims he smelled something and then tells them where he lives? Why was there not a car like immediately driving to his house? They ended up waiting a couple more days, like, oh ho hum, kick the can, whatever, no big deal. I don't know. It's odd. I can't help but wonder what was going on here at 3302 Zander Road. You know, but it fits a lot better than what they're claiming that it came from Avery Salvage. But the thing is that Mr. Metz says it was on November 1st. So now I know some people are going to resist this, even though it was this guy heard this whoosh. There was a horrible, terrible, foul smell that made his freaking cows freak out and start breaking fences. And no, I know that there's going to be some people that just are not going to accept this. So that's fine. I get it. But you know it's got to be in the back of your mind. Like, what's going on here? You know? And why was it not investigated better? I mean, why do we not know more about this location? These are just the obvious questions that occur to me as I think about this. And how much more plausible it is that this fire occurred at 3302 Zander Road, West Zander Road. So, that also, I mean, the implications of it are huge, okay? Even if you still believe Stephen did it. This information, which I think is absolutely true, it rings true. The only thing that doesn't ring true about it is Mr. Metz trying to claim that this all traveled from 4.5 miles south at the Averys. Putting that one part aside, this whole scenario makes a lot more sense, and it puts it on November 1st. Guess what that means? That would mean Brennan is absolutely now beyond 100% clear. If this all happened on the 1st, I mean, it's a whole different story. The narrative, the prosecution's narrative, is completely a joke. And, you know, like I said, I know there's going to be people out there that resist this information, but to me, it tells me that the investigation missed. It missed some huge things. Whether you are pro Avery or whether you're or whether you think he's guilty or whether you think they're both guilty, whatever it is, no matter where you stand, you gotta be looking at this going, gosh, I wish the investigation was better in certain places. Why is it so bad right here where if it was better, it might clear up some things? I don't know. So those are my thoughts, people. Feel free to leave comments below. Ask me any questions you think you'd like to ask me. Leave a comment telling me something about this situation that maybe you think I missed. I am open to everybody's comments. So if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you later.